news, okay? So I have some really good news for everyone. First of all, what is being affected, I am now broadcasting and recording at a better bit rate. I used to do 12,000 kilobits per second. I have upped that to 15,000 kilobits per second. So there should be about a maybe roughly 20 to 25% increase in quality when you're watching, whether you're on stream or you're on demand. And the reason that I wanted to do that is because basically the way I see it, we were having some issues with certain games. So for example, when I would play Street Fighter 6, you would notice that there was a lot of pixelization sometimes in big movement. And actually people who have noticed this are people who were watching that head-to-head video that was made, me versus Brian, back on Friday Night Fights. In that head-to-head video, you will notice that Brian's visuals are much clearer than mine. And the question is why? Well, there could be many different reasons. It could be the capture device that we're using. It could be the bit rate. So I said, you know what? If you remember earlier this year, I actually separated the different processes that my computer's using. One process for streaming is using the CPU, and one process for recording is using my GPU. So since it split that amount of processing, at any time, I realized I can up the bit rate. So I did this morning, and we're going to test this today, and we're going to see how everything looks with the increased bit rate on stream and in the on-demand video. So no matter how you're watching, please today give me feedback on this podcast. Later when we do gameplay, I would love to hear your feedback on how everything looks and sounds, okay? We need to actually mess around with settings as well, because whenever I mess with stuff, everything changes, and I guarantee you that perhaps the volume level needs to be tweaked with today, which is fine. Now, the big change is something completely unexpected. I never expected this, but get this. As you know, this week, there's been a lot of changes. I've been trying to figure out the best way to play Street Fighter 6. We figured out just a couple days ago that if I play it with the input latency reduction feature turned on, that now I can play the game with no input lag. I've played it twice since then, and I've absolutely loved my experience, okay? However, the problem is when I do that, it creates screen tearing. If you noticed in the videos of both E Honda from Monday and Dalsim from yesterday, you would have noticed screen tearing in the visuals, and that's annoying. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely annoying, and other people don't have that. So, you know, how do you get around that? So a lot of people are like, well, if you had variable refresh rate enabled on your console, it fixes that. Well, guess what? My old capture device, which I used for about 1.5 years, was donated by a fan when my other old capture device died. That thing is kind of limited in what it can do. Although it does 4K pass-through, it can only do 1080p 60 frames. It doesn't support HDR. It doesn't support VRR. It doesn't support any of that modern stuff. Okay? So because of that, I couldn't do any of that stuff. So I'm like, I guess we're just going to be stuck where we are. Well, a viewer and fan of mine contacts me and says, Phil, I have a hunch. That since the AverMedia stuff works with your setup, that even though your PC is on Windows 8.1, I think that an AverMedia upgraded device would still work. Even though they claim on all their websites and documentation that you need Windows 10, I still think it'll work. So someone offered to donate me a new capture device to test. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. Just save it maybe for the future, for when I get a new PC or something like that. So I said, you know, hey, if you're willing to donate it, I'd be willing to try it. Listen, we're doing all kinds of good improvements this week, right? So why not give it a shot and just see what happens? So they did, and it showed up this morning, and this is it. This is the AverMedia GC553 Live Gamer Ultra device. Okay? It supposedly works on USB 3.1, which I don't even think I have. I think I have USB 3.0. I'm not sure. I mean, my PC's 10 years old. Was USB 3.1 even around back then? I don't know. Okay? This sucker is way more powerful than my previous capture device. So this one still does the 4K pass-through, but it also captures at 4K if I so choose to do that. The catch is it captures at 30 frames at 4K. So do we really want to go back to 30 frames per second gaming for the sake of doing 4K streams and videos? Probably not. Okay? Now, the catch, or the other cool thing about this one is that it does 1080p, get this, pass-through resolution up to 240 hertz, or that is 240 frames per second. Yeah, it does incredibly high hertz pass through. Okay. As for recording, it can actually record at up to 120 frames per second at 1080p. Okay. That's pretty crazy. It does 120 frames. So it's a big upgrade. All right. It is. It's a big upgrade from what I've been doing. So theoretically, this thing, if it works with my PC, okay, if everything, jives and we don't have any problems, I should be able to play games either at 4K 60 frames or 1080p 120 frames on my TV locally. And chances are, since this is a more modern piece of hardware, I think this is only like a couple years old, actually. I have to look at the, how it has the years listed on it. I'm not sure how old of a piece of tech this is. 2023. It's only a year old. It's a 2023 device. Chances are the encoding on this thing is much better than that outdated device that I was using for a year and a half. That means that probably video is going to look much better for you guys. Like, it probably won't have as much pixelization to begin with. Okay? But the question is, will this work with my PC? Because it says right on it, Windows 10 required, USB 3.1 required. Well, guess what? It showed up this morning at 9 a.m. Now, I had to rush around my house to get everything done this morning and get in the office and mess with this. Okay? Guess what? It works. It works fine. It really does. So let's take a look, okay? Here it is. And as you can see, guess what? HDR is enabled. This is HDR quality right now, which is why it actually looks like a nice, deep, darker, blacks on the screen. It actually has it enabled. No filter required. It just works with HDR out of the box through my console. The console auto-detected it and said, oh yeah, HDR enabled. I was like, holy shit, that's cool. So basically what we have here, you guys are seeing 1080p 60 frames per second HDR enabled video at 15,000 kilobits per second. Okay? I am able to see 120 hertz. I'm actually watching 120p right now on my TV. Now, am I necessarily seeing much difference? Not really. But I mean, we're not playing a game. Once we jump into a game, maybe I would actually notice the difference. I'm not sure. I've never used 120 hertz before, so I don't even know what I'm going to see as a difference. We won't know till we play a game. So this is going to be an interesting experiment today. Today we're playing Multiverses and we're playing Hades 2. And yeah, I'm going to try to run both at the 120 hertz 1080p and see how they work, Now, here's the catch about this, though, is that Street Fighter 6 doesn't run at 120 hertz, okay? They actually limit it to 60 frames, but if you play it at 120 hertz, supposedly it lowers your input delay, okay? So what I want to test today, which we're going to test live on this podcast, I am re-downloading Street Fighter 6 to my Xbox, and I want to play it at 120 hertz on my TV, but I want to see if it reduces the input delay, okay? If it doesn't, I want to see what happens if I do that input delay option again and see what happens on the Xbox version. I'm just curious, comparing Xbox versus PS5, if I can get a version to not have the screen tearing but also have reduced input delay, that's the best of both worlds, and that's what I'm going for. This capture device has everything enabled, right? I can do the 120 frames, so maybe we're going to actually be in a situation where this is going to run better. I don't know, okay? Now, the only other variable here, so we have HDR enabled. We have 120 hertz enabled. This is all good improvements. But what about VRR? I don't think Xbox has it, does it? Because I look in the Xbox menu, it doesn't mention it anywhere, okay? In fact, I can read it for you word for word. I will actually. Let's do that. So I go into TV and display options. I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. All right. So here's what I'm looking at. So right now it's 1080p because I'm at 120 hertz. So here's your TV details, right? So look, your TV supports 4K 60 hertz, but it doesn't do 4K 120 hertz. We know that the capture device doesn't do 4K 120 hertz. You support native 1080 120 frames per second and HDR. I don't know what Dolby Vision is. I have no clue what that is. Okay? So it doesn't mention anything in this menu at all about VRR. So I don't know where the Xbox console would mention VRR at all. Okay? I'm just not sure. I'm kind of scratching my head on that. Like, where would it show that? I don't know. What is it? Video modes? Oh, this is all the modes that are enabled. Oh, look, variable refresh rate off. It's not even selectable. You see that? It's not selectable. So maybe it's saying that I don't have it. I don't know. I don't know if this TV has VRR. I actually have no clue. I know it had HDR, but I wasn't looking for VRR when I bought this TV like 2 years ago. So maybe the TV doesn't have VRR. Okay, if that's the case, then there's nothing I can do about it. But as you can see, it's grayed out. So I don't think it's detecting it. Okay. Anyway, you have to turn it on from the TV. Yeah, but how? Like, every TV's different, right? I don't know how to do that. I don't see anything in my TV settings that say anything about VRR anywhere. Like, I go into, let's see here. I'm looking at all my TV settings. You guys can't see my TV settings, okay? Here, I'll go back to my full screen. Here we go. Yeah, I'm going through my TV settings right now. I see nothing at all. Like, there's picture modes, but that's just like gaming and stuff like that. When you go into picture settings, all it says is gaming, and then it has auto picture mode, brightness, color, clarity, motion, video signal. None of that says VRR. In any menu, there's no VRR listed. So, and then if I go into general settings, channels and inputs, display and sound, network and internet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything about VRR in the TV at all. You know, it's a Sony TV. People know the model because I talked about it earlier. Channels and inputs, external. My Ruin is looking it up. Okay, external inputs. External device setup, manage inputs. Okay. How would I do HDMI signal format? Okay. It says enhanced format. Oh, VRR. Select this option only if your game console supports VRR. I selected it. Oh, boy. I might have it. I just turned it on. Okay, I just enabled it. We're going to see what happens now. It's on. Holy shit, it's on. It worked. Thank you, My Ruin. My Ruin looked up my TV settings and found it. Holy shit, so now I have VRR. Oh my god, this is going to be the biggest upgrade ever. So, I literally just went from 1080p 60 frames, no features, to 1080p 120 hertz, 120 frames, HDR, VRR enabled. Holy shit. Thank you, My Ruin. You are awesome. Thank you for looking that up. Wow. I have variable refresh rate. So now, I should have the absolute best experience playing every game. I should have the least input delay. I should have ultra good response time, right? And we're going to test it. Oh, we're going to test it right now, folks. By the way, today is Wednesday, the 29th of May, 2024. Sorry that we're 15 minutes into the show and I didn't even announce the date yet. If you can't tell, I'm a little excited about this. Street Fighter 6 is still downloading. I'm going to have it fully download, and then I'm going to test it. Because I'm curious, with variable refresh rate, we may be able to play it either on Xbox or PlayStation 5 and have no screen tearing and no input delay. This is going to be crazy, man. I'm so excited. And every game moving forward, I can play at 120 frames per second. And if I want to, I can actually capture it and broadcast it at 120 frames per second. Now, the catch is, I don't know how well YouTube's going to do that. How well YouTube would even implement that. You know, I have no clue. I mean, you're doubling the frame rate. That means that it might take double the processing. So it may not work well, and it might destroy my CPU, and I might not be able to do it. Like right now, okay, with this podcast, broadcasting and recording at each video at 15,000 kilobits per second, I'm using 36% of my CPU, which means I'm probably using the same thing on my GPU. If I did 120 hertz, 120 frames, it would probably double that. So I'd be pushing 70, 80% on each all the time. How long did I have this TV? About a year and a half. It was late 2022. I think the last one died. And that's when I got this one. Yep. That is true. Avarice says not many games other than shooters would even have 120 frames. You're right. Oh, man. So anyway, once Street Fighter 6 finishes fully downloading here, we're going to test it live. We're going to test it and see if it runs with the VRR. And we're going to see what my input delay is like. But I got to plug my old joystick back in. I haven't used that joystick since last year when we were playing it on Xbox. So that's right. You were helping me choose a model of TV. We were looking at all these different ones, and I got a good Sony. This Sony, like I said, this Sony TV supports everything. HDR, VRR, like it supports every feature. Oh, did it finish? I think it actually just finished. So, try Call of Duty. I don't want to play Call of Duty. The new Call of Duty I'll play. I don't want to play the old Call of Duty on here. I had enough of that. We're playing Multiverses. I wonder what Multiverses is at, right? I don't know. You think YouTube caps at 60 frames? Is that true? YouTube does not support higher than 60 frames? I don't know about that. But here's the weirdest thing about all of this, okay? This device claims you need Windows 10 and USB 3.1. I'm running on Windows 8.1 and probably like just USB 3.0, and it's working fine. So why does it say that crap, right? Why? So they're full of it, probably because they're trying to cover their own butts. So that, you know, oh, be sure you have everything you really need, but you don't need it. It's just weird that it works like no problem. I mean, I didn't have to do nothing. I just plugged it in and it's working. Multiverses runs on 120 on PC. Oh, that's interesting. All right, I want to do a test live here on the show. I do. I want to see what happens with Street Fighter 6. I know this is unprecedented. I usually would not have a game for the podcast. But I mean, I'm dying to test this. I don't want to cut into our Multiverses time. Okay? So, let me actually dust off my ancient, it's ancient. My joystick's been sitting here for a while. I need to clean it. I'm going to plug it in to my Xbox. And I'm going to see how this game runs on Xbox. In this case, it won't even matter like what version I play at this point. You know, what's up, Jade? How you doing? So let's test this, okay? I'm going to. Here it is. The old joystick. This is the Hori Fighting Stick Alpha that I was using on my Xbox for a couple of years. Anticipating Street Fighter 6. We used this all the way through until like the fall, and that's when I started playing on PS5. So, real fast, I'm just going to run and get some cleaner, and I'm going to wipe the top off because it's really dusty. And then we're going to test out Street Fighter 6, now running at 120 hertz. Someone said in chat, running Street Fighter 6 at 120 hertz should theoretically lower my input delay by half. So we'll see. All right, get one sec, guys. I'm just going to go grab cleaner. I'll be right back. If I can get my mouse to work.